What is up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. This is my full card breakdown and prediction video for UFC 291. We have Dustin Poirier going against Justin Gaethje 2.
I need all the wins, yeah. Harder than all that is. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out.
And we are back for another full card breakdown and prediction video. This week, breaking down just a monster card in UFC 291, a card that is, quite frankly, just stacked from top to bottom, a card that I'm just really looking forward to, not only from a fan perspective, but from a betting perspective as well. Have a ton of action on this card already, and I'm looking to add a lot more as well. So cannot wait to break it down. Before we do so, a couple things. If you guys could, please leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Going to be much more content coming out during the week for 291. We got, DraftKings, we got Prize Picks, betting, just a ton more content. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on all of that. This is a pay-per-view card, so we are bringing back the Significant Strike Contest. To enter the contest, first, be sure to leave a like on the video. Second, subscribe. And then third, comment down how many significant strikes you think that Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje are going to combine for. First place gets $25. If there is a tie, the tiebreaker does go to the person that commented first. So be sure to comment down those significant strikes. For the main event, I'm expecting quite a few strikes there. And then other than that, now is a great time to sign up on DFSbythenumbers.com. $10 a month. With that, you get all the stats you see on the Friday, the Saturday shows. First notice on all bets. I think I have 4 or 5 bets right now. Also looking to potentially place my first max bet of the year this year. You get my betting articles, my full card breakdown and best bet article. I'm actually almost done with it. Got really ahead this week, so going to be a lot of line movement, hopefully. On that full card best bet article, I break down the entire card, get my prediction, the round, the method, the confidence rating, and of course, the best bet, and just more features on top of that. Just a lot of things you do not see on YouTube. So be sure to check out DFSbythenumbers.com. Be sure to check out Prize Picks. Use that promo code DFSBTN for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. My Prize Picks breakdown will be coming out later in the week. Last week went 8 for 10 on the Prize Picks plays. The week prior went 8 for 9. So having a lot of success so far with Prize Picks and hopefully continuing to replicate that throughout the rest of the year. All right, with all that out of the way, I say we get right into it. And I say we start with the first fight on the card. This bout order is not confirmed, so don't come after me. I'm assuming they're going to switch this up a little bit throughout the week, but we're going to start with an absolute banger. Miranda Maverick going against Priscila Cachoeira. We got Miranda Maverick, who is 26 years old, 5'3", with a 65.5-inch reach, 11-5 and 2-3 in her last 5 fights. Priscila Cachoeira, she is 34 years old, 5'7", with a 65-inch reach, 12-4 and 4-1 in her last 5 fights. So we'll take a look at the odds. We see that Miranda Maverick is one of the biggest, I think the biggest favorite on the card this week. So she opened up minus 500. She is currently minus 350. And Priscila Cachoeira opened up plus 375, and she is currently plus 285. So I actually think Priscila Cachoeira is going to be a very popular pick this week. And we are in a big talking point for me on this video and for this card is going to be the fact that we are in Salt Lake City, Utah, which is high elevation, and I think that is going to affect, honestly, a couple matchups on this card. This really not being one of them. Miranda Maverick does train in Colorado at elevation, so I don't think it's going to be a big deal. So although Miranda Maverick is coming in here on somewhat short notice, I don't think that's going to affect her too much compared to, we have Uros coming in on short notice, Darius Flowers, where I think it's really going to affect those guys. But for this fight specifically, I don't take into account that all that much here. So there's a reason Miranda Maverick is a minus 350 favorite here, right? I mean, she just has a clear, glaring path to victory, and that path to victory is going to get this fight down to the mat. In the past, I've joked and said Priscila catch a beating and Priscila catch a cheating even, and that still rings true because she does cheat a lot. She misses weight. She grabs the cage. She has those eye gouges she did against Jillian Robertson. And I do expect a couple fouls here from Cachoeira. But the fact of the matter is, when Cachoeira does get taken down, she's kind of a fish on the water, fish out of water on the mat. She doesn't really have a good understanding of how to get up, how to defend off of her back as well. She kind of just lays there and Eventually, against Gina Mazzani, she was taken down multiple times. Eventually, Mazzani kind of gassed out and Cachoeira finished her. I don't really think that's on the table here. So yeah, as long as Miranda Maverick comes in here with a good game plan, and that game plan getting this fight down to the mat, I think she covers that price tag. She's not going to want to strike with Cachoeira. Obviously, I think Maverick could have success just because Cachoeira does, block punches with her face, but that's kind of what Cachoeira wants. She wants you to hit her in the face, a couple times so she can land that one big shot, and that one big shot can put you out. Cachoeira is an absolute savage, but it's just a really tough matchup for her in this fight. Miranda Maverick, she's 4-3 in the UFC, but her 3 losses come against Erin Blanchfield, no shame in that whatsoever. Macy Barber in a fight that, she won the fight, but the judges scored it the other way. And then the last fight, Jasmine Jazz DeVicious, not a good loss whatsoever, but it's just a completely different matchup. Miranda Maverick's going to take this fight down to the mat, and when she does, it's going to be her world. I like Miranda Maverick to win this fight by sub. I'll say second round submission. But if she messes around on the feet, she's probably going to get served. But I expect Maverick to come in here, fight smart. She took this matchup on short notice, and I think it's for a reason. And I think it's because she knows it's a very, very good matchup. So give me Miranda Maverick to kick off the card. Biggest favorite on the card as far as I'm concerned at this moment. But I think she goes out there and looks her price tag with the right game plan. So give me Maverick, second round sub. Moving on, we got Matthew Semelsberger going against Uros Medic. We got Semelsberger, 30 years old, 6'1" with a 75-inch reach, 11-5, and 3-2 in her last 5 fights. Uros Medic, 30 years old, 6'1" with a 71-inch reach, 8-1, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds. We see that Semelsberger opened up -185, currently -200. Medic opened up +165. He's currently +170. So we talked about elevation, which again is going to be a huge talking point for this card and this fight. Uros Medic is coming in here on short notice. It was supposed to be Matthew Semelsberger versus Johan Lioness, which quite frankly would have probably been a terrible fight because Johan Lioness is just extremely boring nowadays. Medic, complete opposite. Medic is going to go in there and at least he's going to fight. So I think this fight is going to be a very, very fun fight. Really happy with the replacement. Really happy with Medic taking this fight on short notice, which it is a very, very tough fight. So not only is he coming here on short notice, he's coming back up to welterweight. This is going to be his first fight in the UFC at welterweight. He has fought at welterweight in the past, back in the Alaska FC days. So he's coming up a weight class. He's coming here on short notice. This fight is at elevation. I don't like Medic cardio in general. I think it's a very, very tough matchup for Uros Medic. With that said, though, he's going to have an opportunity early, potentially land a big shot on Semelsberger, but a early knockout is about all the chance I give him here. Medic has a ton of power. He's a very good striker, but I just really struggled to see him keep up that pace across 3 rounds, across over 1.5 rounds. He's only been over 1.5 once, and it was his last fight against Omar Morales. He's never seen the 3rd round. Quite frankly, I don't think that really changes here. And I think Semelsberger just has a lot more paths to victory. I think Semelsberger is more durable. I think he has better cardio. I think he has better wrestling, better grappling. Could Medic finish him early? He could, but I think Semelsberger's chin is good enough to withstand that early onslaught from Uros Medic. And I think, Semelsberger has a ton of power. This guy hits like an absolute truck. I mean, they call him semi for a reason. The guy hits like a semi truck. This guy's like 9 knockdowns in 8 fights. There was that last fight with Jeremiah Wells where he knocked down Jeremiah Wells just about every round. I'm not sure how Jeremiah Wells survived that fight, but he did somehow. And he got controlled for 11 minutes in that Wells fight, and a judge even scored the fight for Matthew Semelsberger. I mean, it was a fight where Wells had a ton of control, but Semelsberger was landing those knockdowns. It was a good performance, and he's not going to worry about that here against Medic. Medic is not taking anybody down ever. And then he went out there and knocked down Jake Matthews 3 times. And he knocked down Alex Morono. He knocked down Martin Sano. He knocked out Jason Witt. He knocked down Carlton Mines. I mean, this guy's power is no joke. And I think once Medic does feel that power up a weight class on short notice in elevation, I think Semelsberger again eventually gets him out of there. I'll say 2nd round, but quite frankly, it probably could be early. Semelsberger hits that hard. I'll say Semelsberger's 2nd round knockout, though, after Medic starts to slow down a little bit. Absolute banger of a fight. Moving on, we got CJ Vergara going against Vinicius Salvador. We got Vergara, 32 years old, 5'6", with a 68-inch reach, 11-4, and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Vinicius Salvador, 27 years old, 5'7", with a 70.5-inch reach, 14-5 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. So we'll take a look at the odds. Vergara opened up -175. He's currently -155. Salvador opened up +150. He is currently +135 here. So I kind of changed my tone on Salvador a little bit. So, and I've been going back and forth on whether Salvador is legit or not. And so I remember taping Salvador for the Contender Series, right? And I'm watching tape on this guy prior to the Shannon Ross fight, and I'm like, I'm just not impressed at all. Shannon Ross was like a -250, maybe even -300 favorite in that Salvador Ross fight, right? And Salvador, he took some time off prior to that Ross fight. It was like a couple years, I think. He came back and just looked like a completely different fighter. So he looked good. It really surprised me. I'm like, who the heck is this guy? This is not who I watched on tape. And then you kind of look back at it now, and you're like, how bad has that win aged for Vinicius Salvador? He went out there, he looked great against Shannon Ross, but he looked great against Shannon Ross, who got starched in 60 seconds by Kletzen Rodriguez. He got starched by the very first punch of Jesus Aguilar, who has a 62-inch reach, and that was his first knockout ever. So, yeah, he looked good and much improved in that Ross fight, but how much can we really take away from that? And then, my goodness, he shows up in his debut and just looks awful. I mean, he looks terrible. He came in there with that awkward haircut, and then he came in there against Victor Altamirano and just looked terrible. It was a very, very bad performance. He was showboating in a fight that he was getting outclassed in. He was swinging wild and reckless and missing by a mile. He was, lifting his hands up and like he won the first round when he clearly lost. He was walking away instead of fighting. It was just a atrocious performance, quite frankly. And I'm wondering, is Salvador the real deal? I thought, hey, he might have turned a corner in that Shannon Ross fight, but I'm kind of the opinion of I don't think he's the real deal. With that said, though, Vergara, I don't think he's the best fighter in the world, but he's solid everywhere. He has very good volume, very good toughness. He showed that toughness off in the Daniel Da Silva fight where he got hurt 50 times. Is it a good thing that he got hurt 50 times? No. But, to see him recover like the way he did, it was very impressive. He recovered. The fight could have been stopped, but he recovered, got to the second, and got the finish win there. I think Vergara is going to have the durability advantage. I think he's going to have the cardio advantage. And I think once this fight hits the second or third round, I absolutely expect Salvador to start slowing down, especially in elevation here. And I think Salvador is kind of relying on like an early finish here, to be honest. And to rely on an early finish in the flyweight division against a guy in Vergara who showed just next level toughness, I can't really get there. So although Vinicius Salvador seems like a pretty popular dog this week, I don't know. I just don't think he's that great. I couldn't be any less impressed from his just terrible debut, showing awful striking, showing an awful takedown defense, showing awful fight IQ, just awful. To put that performance into one word was just awful. I don't know if it was because of his UFC debut or if Victor Altamirano is the next big thing, which I don't really think so. I'm just not really sure, what to think of Salvador at this point. So I'll take CJ Vergara here. I'll take him to weather the early storm, put it on Vinicius Salvador. And I think he can finish him late third round. I think he's going to get on top at some point and pound this guy out or submit him. Give me CJ Vergara to win this fight. I'll say late third round knockout. Another very good fight, though. Moving on, we have Jake Matthews going against Darius Flowers. We got Jake Matthews, 28 years old, 5'11", with a 72-inch reach. We have 18-6 record for Jake Matthews, and then he has 3-2. In his last 5 fights, Darius Flowers, 28 years old, 5'9", with a 71-inch reach, 12-5 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds, and we see that Jake Matthews opened up -400, currently -300. Darius Flowers opened up +330. He's currently +250. So back to elevation. Darius Flowers is coming in here on pretty short notice. So it was supposed to be Jake Matthews versus Miguel Baeza. Yeah, Jake Matthews versus Miguel Baeza. Baeza had to pull out in steps Darius Flowers, who I'll be honest, I'm excited that this guy Darius Flowers is in the UFC. Remember taping this guy from Contender Series. This guy is as exciting as it gets. He kind of reminds me of like a Derrick Lewis, where he goes out there, he doesn't do a lot of anything really. He goes out there very patient, and then once he starts to go, once he starts to land, he puts up like a 20 to 30 punch combination, all power. Once he starts to go, he goes 110% with 110% power. This guy is super explosive. He has wrestling in his back pocket as well. He can take guys down. He's so physically strong. The problem with Darius Flowers, and in this matchup specifically, is going to be absolutely the cardio. So, like I said, he's taking this fight on short notice. He's taking it, at elevation here. He's a guy that I worry about the gas tank in general. Like, typically throughout the fight, he slows down in general. So what is he going to look like short notice in elevating, right? I think it's going to be a bad look. But with that said, Darius Flowers is going to have some opportunities here early. This guy is good. He's good, he's dangerous, and maybe he knocks out Jake Matthews. It's just really hard to pick Darius Flowers in this matchup. Maybe on a full camp, honestly, I may consider it on a full camp, normal circumstances, but in this matchup specifically, I think that Jake Matthews probably does weather that early storm, weather those first 3-4 minutes, and once that it gets to the late first round, I think we're going to really see Flowers tire out. I think it's going to get into the second round, and Flowers is just going to be completely gassed. I think Matthews gets him out of there. Second round sub. Should be a good matchup for Jake Matthews. Just really has to kind of weather a storm here, and a storm it's going to be. You got to imagine Flowers coming in here on short notice. He's going to go after it very quickly. I mean, he does anyway, so I expect him to go after it even quicker than he does already. So this is going to be a very fun fight. Typically, Jake Matthews fights, they're not the best. They've been a little better lately. He does have some boring fights in there, like the Meek fight was terrible. The Diego Sanchez fight was terrible. This fight's not going to be terrible. This is going to be a very, very fun fight, very explosive fight. I think Jake Matthews takes down Darius Flowers in the second round and subs him. Darius Flowers, for what it's worth, has been submitted a massive 4 times. I think it becomes 5 here at UFC 291. So give me Jake Matthews. Jake Matthews second round sub fire fight. Another good fight. Like I said, guys, this fight card is just stacked from top to bottom. There's not one fight where I'm like, this fight sucks. Not one fight like that. I think every single fight on this card is going to be very fun and exciting, and this is another one of them. Roman Kopylov going against Claudio Ribeiro. We got Roman Kopylov, 32 years old, 6 foot with a 75-inch reach, 10-2, and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Claudio Ribeiro, 31 years old, 6'1" with a 77-inch reach, 11-3. and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. So we'll take a look at the odds. We see that Kopylov opened up minus 200. He is currently minus 235. And Claudio Ribeiro opened up plus 170. He's currently plus 200. So I just got to talk about kind of the evolution of this Kopylov guy, man. I mean, this is a guy that I didn't think I had much high hopes for. He made his debut against Carl Roberson at this point, like 4 years ago, back in 2019, and he didn't look great in that fight. He was super low volume. He got taken down by Carl Roberson and submitted, which obviously just aged very, very poorly. And then he fights Albert Duraev. He actually gets a knockdown early on in the first round, but Duraev takes him down, shows that Kopylov still has a huge hole in his game, which is the ground game. Duraev almost finished Kopylov. I mean, the fight could have been stopped on several occasions, but he was able to kind of survive there. And then he goes out there after about a year layoff. I think it was maybe 11 months, about a year layoff, and he fights Alessio Di Chirico, and he just looks good. He looks better than ever against Alessio Di Chirico. Just picks him apart, and then eventually hurts him bad in the third round, puts it on him, and finishes him early third. And then he takes a couple more months off. He's doing some training in Dagestan, probably working on that wrestling, that takedown defense. And then he fights Punahele Soriano, and oh my goodness, did this guy look good. I mean, he looked better than ever. His striking looked phenomenal. He was very patient. He was very defensively sound. He was really picking his spots. He was mixing it up, to the head, to the body. He was investing in the body. He was really picking apart Punahele Soriano. Soriano was next level tough. I'm surprised the fight went as long as it did, because Kopylov was landing some nasty shots on him, especially in that second round. And then he was able to actually finish Punahele Soriano, who's just, like I said, next level tough. He put it on Soriano and finished him in that second round. If we get an even more improved version of Roman Kopylov, that's going to be terrifying. This guy is no joke. And luckily for Roman Kopylov, he's getting another striker here in Claudio Ribeiro. You know, if he was getting into somebody that was going to try to take him down, then you might have some concerns, because that is a hole in Kopylov's game, is the takedown defense ground game, right? That's not Claudio Ribeiro's game. I know Claudio Ribeiro got a takedown against Joseph Holmes, but doesn't really impress me that much. I think these guys are going to strike, and when they do, Claudio Ribeiro, he's super dangerous as well. He has a lot of power, but I don't trust the cardio of Claudio Ribeiro. This is a guy that has the majority of his finishes come early. Maybe he does land on Kopylov early. I think if Ribeiro does win this fight, it is by first round knockout. But as this fight goes on, the damage is going to add up. You know, Kopylov's not really a one-punch knockout power guy. Ribeiro is. But, you know, Kopylov's going to invest in the body. He's going to invest in that jab. And I think eventually he's going to put it on Ribeiro, finish him in that second round. Roman Kopylov, this should be a winnable fight for him. It's a dangerous fight for him. But I think he's going to fight smart like he did in the Soriano fight. Just take his time early on. Let Ribeiro start to slow down. And I think eventually Kopylov does land a big shot and hurt Ribeiro and get him out of there. So give me Roman Kopylov to win this fight. I'll say Roman Kopylov wins this fight by second round knockout. Ribeiro has been knocked out before by Abdulrazak Alassane, and that was in the second round as well. And I think he gets another second round knockout loss here. So give me Kopylov, second round knockout. Really, really looking forward to this fight. Moving on, we have I believe the featured prelim at the moment. We have Marcos Rogerio de Lima going against Derrick Lewis. Another banger. We got Marcos Rogerio de Lima, 38 years old, 6'1" with a 75-inch reach, 28-1, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Derrick Lewis, 38 years old, 6'3" with a 79-inch reach, 26-11 and 1-4 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds, and we see that it opened up. De Lima minus 105, Lewis minus 115, and we now have De Lima minus 180, Lewis plus 155. DraftKings Sportsbook, it was 2 months ago, they opened up some props some lines for this card. They opened up the Blachowicz fight, they opened up the Green fight, the Holland fight, and this fight, and then also the Paulo Costa fight, which isn't on this card no more. But they opened up De Lima at plus 120 or something like that. And that's kind of wild. I wish I would have hopped on. Now he's minus 180, and I expect this line to keep climbing, which it should. I mean, De Lima should be a pretty big favorite, but we got to remember this. At the end of the day, this is a heavyweight fight, and at the end of the day, this is Derrick Lewis, who is one of, if not the hardest hitter in the heavyweight division, even at 38 years old. Even though he's 1-4 in his last 5 fights, I mean, he hits very, very hard. But this is a crap matchup for him. This is a terrible matchup for Derrick Lewis. De Lima has Lewis covered everywhere. I think De Lima can knock out Derrick Lewis. I think he can knock him out to the head. I think he can knock him out to the legs. I think De Lima honestly could get a leg kick TKO here. De Lima has some of the nastiest leg kicks in the heavyweight division. I'm not sure how Waldo Cortez Acosta was able to eat those leg kicks like he did. But I can tell you right now, Derrick Lewis won't. I have some serious concerns about Derrick Lewis at this point of his career. 38 years old, 1-4 in his last 5 fights. Derrick Lewis, he's kind of changed up his style, which is crazy. At this point, he's kind of changed up his style. So Derrick Lewis in the past was a guy that was super patient. He would go out there and, quite frankly, do nothing. He would pick his spots very well. He would kind of let you strike with him while he kind of sits back and does nothing, and then he'll eventually explode and try to knock you out. But he'll take his time. He'll wait, to the second, to the third round to explode and finish you late. He has a lot of late finishes. Nowadays, Derrick Lewis is going out there and being aggressive, which, in theory, I mean, you would think that'd be a good thing, but it's kind of to his detriment. Now he's getting finished very early on. In his last 6 fights, they have finished under 1.5 rounds, which is not typically your average Derrick Lewis fight. Typically guys are scared of that Lewis power. typically there's not a lot going on, but now Lewis is getting more aggressive, forcing these guys into a firefight, and Lewis just doesn't have the durability. Derrick Lewis's durability, I have serious question marks about it, and I have question marks about Derrick Lewis battling any adversity whatsoever. When the going gets tough, Derrick Lewis looks for a way out. Derrick Lewis, 11 losses at this point for him. 9 losses inside the distance, 7 by knockout. It's just a tough matchup for De Lima. Nobody should be shocked if Derrick Lewis knocks out De Lima, but how likely is that? I mean, especially now, in Derrick Lewis's career, late in his career, 30 years old, 1-4 in his last 5 fights against good guys, but he hasn't been looking great. Question where his head's at this point, and you have De Lima, who just has more paths to victory. De Lima, like I said, can knock him out to the head. He has a ton of power, and De Lima's knocked out durable guys before. He knocked out Ben Rothwell, who hadn't been knocked out in like 12 years. He knocked out, who's that? Ben Sassoli, who has like a brick for a head in the first round. I mean, he has multiple first-round finishes, De Lima. He knocked down Andrei Arlovsky, who kind of had like a chin resurgence for a little bit, and then De Lima knocked him down and subbed him shortly after. So De Lima can knock out Lewis to the head. I think a leg kick TKO is very much in play. I think Lewis is not going to like those leg kicks. It's going to force him to go in there and try to throw down because he's not going to be able to eat a bunch of those at all. Not Derrick Lewis. And then De Lima can take down Derrick Lewis and sub him. So just so many paths for De Lima here. I see why money's pouring in on him. I missed the line. I mean, if I could have got De Lima at, minus 115, minus 120, that would have been a bet for me. By the time I did tape it, he was like minus 170. Now he's minus 180, and I expect him to keep climbing here. I'm going to take De Lima, first round TKO via leg kicks. I think a couple of these leg kicks just shut down Derrick Lewis. Fight's over shortly after. Give me De Lima, first round KO. Moving on, we got Gabriel Benitez going against Officer Trevin Giles. We got Gabriel Benitez. Did I say that? We got Gabriel Bonfim going against Officer Trevin Giles. We have Bonfim, 25 years old, 6'1", with a 72-inch reach, 14-0, obviously 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Officer Trevin Giles, 30 years old, 6 foot with a 74-inch reach, 16-4, and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds here. Bonfim opened up minus 200, currently minus 310. I believe the third biggest favorite on the card, behind Maverick Bobby Green. Trevin Giles, he opened up plus 170, is currently sitting at plus 260. So, yeah, Bonfim, obviously a lot of hype on this guy, and rightfully so. I went and watched every single fight that I could find of Gabriel Bonfim, and I'd say like 90% of the fights I watched, it was like the same thing. Once the fight hit the mat, in any type of way, whether it was him getting a takedown, whether it was him getting a knockdown, whether it was his opponent shooting in on him, as soon as the fight hits the mat, it is over. This guy is probably one of the best opportunistic submission artists I've ever seen. He is so good at finding different submissions. He has so many different submissions on his record. I believe he had that Von Flue choke on the Contender Series. He had a 60-second submission against Manur Lazez in his debut. This guy is such an opportunistic submission, dude. I mean, this guy has 79% of his wins come by submission, and like I said, he has this great submission game, but his striking is very good as well. Very fast hands, very good boxing, power as well. So he's dangerous everywhere. Gabriel Bonfim, I think, is going to be a problem. I hope people aren't low on him just because his brother, lost his last fight. I mean, they're two different fighters. Gabriel Bonfim, I think both Bonfim brothers are the real deal, but Gabriel Bonfim especially, this guy has a 100% finish rate. Like I said, dangerous on the feet, dangerous on the mat, and although I think Officer Trevin Giles is a very good fighter, I've always thought Giles was really underrated. I always thought Giles is good everywhere. He's an athlete. He has a great jab, great striking overall. Great offensive wrestling, great defensive wrestling, great BJJ. The problem with Officer Trevin Giles is the fight IQ is some of the worst I've ever seen, and some of the worst on this card. I think he has the worst fight IQ on this card, and that's saying a ton because we have Kevin Holland on this card. So he just makes so many bad mistakes. He's a guy that just can't put it together for the full 15 minutes. He's looking good, and then he gets knocked out by Dricus du Plessis. He's looking great. He gets dropped and submitted by Cummings. He's doing really good against Gerald Meerschaert. He goes to the ground and gets subbed. I mean, this guy just makes mistake after mistake after mistake, and you have to be perfect in this fight to even think about beating a guy like Gabriel Bonfim. So Trevin Giles finishing all 4 of his losses. All 4 losses come in the UFC, 2 by knockout, 2 by sub. Bonfim can knock him out. Bonfim can sub him. I question the cardio of Trevin Giles as well. Late in the fight, I think Bonfim's going to be live for a finish in the first, second, or third round. I think Officer Trevin Giles is going to need some backup if he's going to want to win this fight. So I'm going to take Gabriel Bonfim to win this fight. I'll say he wins it by first round submission, but he could also come in the second and third. But I think it's probably early club and sub type situation here. Just don't like the durability of Trevin Giles, especially at welterweight. And this Bonfim guy's he's a problem. So give me Bonfim first round sub. Really good fight. Moving on, we have a very good fight as well. We have Kevin Holland going against Michael Chiesa. We got Kevin Holland, 30 years old, 6'3" with an 81-inch reach, 24-9, and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Michael Chiesa, 35 years old, 6'1", with a 75.5-inch reach, 16-6. And 3-2 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds. Kevin Holland opened up a -170 favorite, currently -145. Michael Chiesa opened up +145. He is currently +125. So I know that Chiesa is going to be a very, very popular dog this week. I mean, when you look at this fight on paper, what does Kevin Holland struggle with? He struggles with the takedown defense, the get-up game. We've seen him taken down. We've seen him controlled. We've seen him subbed. All of that is true. I don't think that this fight is quite that simple, though. You take a look at Kevin Holland, and when he is struggling, with the takedowns, the get-up game, that was at middleweight against big middleweight, very good wrestlers in Derrick Brunson, Marvin Vettori. There was that Chimaev fight where Chimaev subbed him in the first couple minutes of the fight. That was at like a 180 catch weight. This fight is at welterweight, 170, which is Kevin Holland's natural weight class. I think this weight class fits him a lot better than going up and fighting those big middleweights, right? And he's going against Chiesa, who is a big dude in his own right, but he's fought a lot of his career at lightweight. I don't think Chiesa is the biggest welterweight in the world. So in that aspect of things, I think that is something that absolutely needs to be mentioned, that yes, Kevin Holland does struggle with the takedown defense, get-up game, but a lot of that was at middleweight, and we know for a fact, that is all that Kevin Holland is working on, or at least he should be working on, because that is the one hole that we have seen in Kevin Holland's game. That's not to say, Chiesa is not taking down Kevin Holland. I mean, Chiesa is a phenomenal wrestler, phenomenal grappler. It's just Chiesa, I'm not really sure where he's at in his career. I think these guys are at 2 different points in their career. Michael Chiesa is now 35 years old. He's on a 2-fight skid. He's been super inactive like the last couple years, like just barely fighting. Kevin Holland, the complete opposite. Much younger, much more active. He's 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He's taken some tough, like taking a fight with Hamza Chimaev on like a day's notice. That's a tough matchup, right? So I'm not really sure where Chiesa's at. Like, is this, he has that a job with the UFC behind the desk. So he's doing that. Is he focusing 100% in the fighting at this point? I don't know. Whereas with Kevin Holland, 30 years old, he's in his prime. We're going to expect improvements more than likely from Kevin Holland. So I think for Chiesa to win this fight, he's going to have to either submit Kevin Holland early, or at some point in this fight, which it could happen potentially. Kevin Holland has been sub 4 times, or B, just he has to go out there and fight a perfect fight, because on the feet, I don't think it's that close, and I don't think Chiesa is going to want to strike with Kevin Holland, who has a massive size advantage, a massive reach advantage, massive power as well. I know Chiesa's tough. He's only been knocked out once, and it was a doctor stoppage, but I think Holland could knock out Chiesa. And then, so not only does Chiesa have to be careful on the feet, or quite frankly, don't strike at all, he has to be perfect in the grappling, making no mistakes. And trust me when I say Chiesa makes a ton of mistakes in the grappling. He's been submitted 4 times. Just recently got submitted by Vicente Luque. He got submitted by Anthony Pettis. He got submitted by Kevin Lee. He got submitted by, Jorge Masvidal back in the day. This guy gets submitted a ton. Kevin Holland, for what it's worth, is a black belt, does have multiple submissions on his record. So I just think at some point Holland is going to either land a big shot, get a club and sub victory like he did in the Tim Means fight, or B, I think Chiesa is going to make a mistake on the mat. He's going to leave out his neck, and I think Holland's going to snatch it up. So I'm going to say Kevin Holland, second round club and sub matchup. I get what people are saying. Like on paper, it's a matchup where Chiesa has a path. I just don't think that this fight is that simple to break down. Give me Kevin Holland inside the distance, second round submission. Moving on, we have a fight that probably shouldn't be sanctioned. We have Bobby Green going against Tony Ferguson. We have Bobby Green, 36 years old, 5'10", with a 71-inch reach, 29-14-1, and 2-2-1 no contest in his last 5 fights. Tony Ferguson, he is 39 years old, 5'11", 76.5-inch reach, 25-8, and 0-5 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds. Bobby Green opened up as a minus 310 favorite. He is currently minus 400, which I guess that now makes him the biggest favorite on the card, ahead of Maverick even. Money's been pouring in on Bobby Green the last couple of days. Tony Ferguson opened up plus 270. He's currently plus 330 now. So when I first researched this fight, I looked at the line. I saw, Tony Ferguson, plus 270, plus 275 against Bobby Green. I got to look into this. And then after looking into it, I don't really think Tony Ferguson has much of a chance here. Tony Ferguson's looked atrocious. I'm a huge Tony Ferguson fan, one of my favorite fighters, but this downfall has been kind of sad to watch. It all started with that Justin Gaethje fight, right, where he just took life-changing damage. It was a fight that, quite frankly, was hard to watch. It got stopped, and it got stopped a little bit too late. They could have stopped that fight a long time ago. Gaethje was just putting it on Ferguson, hurting him multiple times. Ferguson just too tough for his own good in that fight. I think that took a lot out of Ferguson there. And then he goes out there, he loses to Charles Oliveira via takedowns and control. Same thing with Darius, takedowns and control. And then he goes out there against Michael Chandler, looks okay early, and then just a nasty knockout, like one of the most brutal knockouts I've ever seen. So that probably took a lot out of Tony Ferguson. And then he goes out there against Nate Diaz and just looks awful. Looks terrible. Just horrible. He looked terrible in that matchup. He gets outlanded in pretty much every round besides the third, but the third was close. He looked off. It was the worst we've ever seen Tony Ferguson. And then what really did it for me was Tony Ferguson. It was the 4th round. He shoots in for a takedown, and Diaz snatches his neck up instantly, right? And Ferguson, it didn't even look like he tried to get out of it. It kind of looked like he just kind of accepted that he was going to get subbed. He was going to tap. He kind of just accepted it, which shocked me, and this is why it shocked me. The Charles Oliveira fight, where I think it was late 1st round, where Charles Oliveira was literally ripping his arm off, and Tony Ferguson didn't even think about tapping. What? It just makes no sense. I think we have seen the end of Tony Ferguson. He's going against Bobby Green here, who is just not washed at this point. Where Ferguson definitely is. Kind of sucks that this fight's even happening. Bobby Green's not a finisher, but I think he finishes Ferguson here. I just think Ferguson has nothing left. Give me Bobby Green, 3rd round knockout, and I think this will be the end of Tony Ferguson in the UFC. And like I said, this fight probably shouldn't even be happening here. So Bobby Green, I know he finishes nobody, but he's probably going to finish Ferguson here. Bobby Green, 3rd round finish. I think he puts it on Ferguson, and I think the refs is just going to stop in, kind of like a mercy stoppage. That's enough. We've seen enough, which we have seen enough. So give me Bobby Green, 3rd round knockout. Moving on, we have Stephen Thompson going against Michel Pereira. We got Stephen Thompson, 40 years old, 6 foot with a 75-inch reach, 21-8-1, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Michel Pereira, 29 years old, 6'1", with a 78-inch reach, 28-11, and 5-0 in his last 5 fights. We have Stephen Thompson, who opened up as the favorite. He is opened up minus 200. He is currently minus 160. Pereira opened up plus 170. He is currently plus 140. So I picked a lot of dogs last week. I picked 6 dogs. I think I picked 4 or 5 dogs the week before at 290. I haven't picked a dog yet, and I do think a lot of favorites on this card are going to come through. This is a dog that I think is very live here, though, in Michel Pereira, and I am going to pick him. But in terms of betting him, I can't do that. Michel Pereira is a guy that I refuse to put any money on ever again after the multiple shenanigan circumstances throughout his UFC career. With that said, though, he has toned it down a little bit, but he is still going out there doing things that are fun and entertaining, but things you would not want to see when you are betting on somebody. The full out 3-minute dance routines, the cartwheels, the back flips, the front flip. I mean, just everything. So he's an exciting fighter. He's a showman. But I would like to see him tone it down even more, because he's such a good fighter. Like, he's 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He's been looking very, very good as of late. I think we got a close fight on our hands. Stephen Thompson at 40 years old has looked better than ever in the striking department. Against Kevin Holland, put on just an absolute masterclass. Jeff Neal, absolute masterclass. Vicente Luque, absolute masterclass. Where he's been struggling, though, is in that grappling, the takedown defense. We saw Muhammad take him down 7 times and control him. We saw Gilbert Burns shoot a takedown in the first, second, or third, and that was the fight. Thompson had no answer for it. He's going against Michel Pereira, who is primarily a striker, but Pereira does wrestle, and he wrestles in pretty much every single fight. Pereira has a 55% takedown accuracy here. He got 2 takedowns against Connolly, 2 takedowns against Diego Sanchez, a takedown against Salim Imadaev, 2 takedowns against Chaos Williams, 3 takedowns against Nico Price, a takedown against Andre Fiala. Like, this guy's getting takedowns in pretty much every fight. It's just he doesn't really have the ability to control his opponents. So is he going to control Stephen Thompson? I don't think so for long periods of time. But I'm kind of thinking, like, in a fight where I think it is going to be competitive on the feet. I favor Thompson on the feet, but I think it's going to be competitive. If Pereira does mix in a takedown, get a couple minutes of control time throughout the fight, that could be enough to steal it here. I think it's a close fight. Money's coming in on Pereira. I can't get there myself. I can't trust him. I can't trust the cardio of Pereira. I can't trust the in-fight decision-making of Pereira, the fight IQ. But as far as a pick, I will pick Pereira here to win a very close decision. He is so much younger, 11 years younger, which is kind of crazy to say. Like, it's weird seeing Pereira's only 29 years old when the guy has about 40 fights. I think this is his 40th fight. But yeah, he's 11 years younger, and he has some pass here. So give me Pereira to win this fight. I think it's going to be close. It's a dog or pass situation, but like I said, I retired from betting on Michel Pereira fights a long time ago. Pereira by decision. Moving on, we got the co-main event. I did break down this main event, went into a little bit more detail on my channel. Be sure to check that out if you have not already. But yeah, we got Jan Blachowicz going against Alex Pereira here. Phenomenal co-main event. I was kind of hoping they would make this the interim light heavyweight championship after the Jamal Hill situation, but looks like they're not doing that. This is going to be a 3-round fight. So we'll start with Jan Blachowicz, who is 40 years old, 6'2", with a 78-inch reach, 29-9-1, and 3-1-1. In his last 5 fights. Alex Pereira, 36 years old, 6'4", with an 80-inch reach, 7-2, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. So we'll take a look at the odds. We see that Blachowicz opened up -145, currently -115, and then Pereira opened up +125. He is currently -115. So I do expect this line to potentially flip in favor of Alex Pereira here. And for me, it all comes down to the game plan of Jan Blachowicz. Is Jan Blachowicz going to go out here and test his striking against Alex Pereira? If he does that, could he still win? Yeah, he could. He could still win. He could potentially knock out Alex Pereira, who has shown durability issues in the past. Alex Pereira, who just got knocked out 2 months and 3 weeks ago, brutally against Israel Adesanya, obviously coming back way too soon. Jan Blachowicz has that legendary Polish power, who, by the way, it was funny. Somebody commented on my video yesterday saying that Blachowicz has the most overrated power ever. And it's funny he says that, because I used to say the same thing. I was like, yeah, this guy's power is overrated. He's not knocking out anybody. And then he goes on to just knock out everybody after that. I no longer crap on Jan Blachowicz's power, because I've been wrong on this guy so many times. I think it was like a fight stretch with Blachowicz where I got Rockhold wrong. I think it was Corey Anderson wrong. I got just everything wrong with Jan Blachowicz, just disrespecting the power. Yeah, Corey Anderson I got wrong. I think Jacare Souza, I think I did pick Blachowicz in that. But I picked Adesanya. I picked Dominic Reyes against this guy. I was always picking against this guy. Disrespecting that Polish power, but I no longer do that. This guy hits very, very hard. But the power is not really where I think he wins this fight. I think he could, but that's not where I think he wins this fight. Where I think he wins this fight is quite obvious, and that is going to be the ground game here. Jan Blachowicz is a black belt in BJJ. He has not used that wrestling, that black belt a lot in the UFC. He lands less than a takedown. But we saw when Adesanya came up a weight class, Jan Blachowicz proceeded to take down Adesanya in both the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round and ultimately win that fight with the takedowns in control. And honestly, prior to taking down Adesanya in that 3rd, 4th, and 5th round, he outlands Adesanya in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th round. All 5 rounds he outlands Adesanya. So I think people might be sleeping on the striking of Blachowicz a little bit here. But yeah, on the feet, you got to favor a guy like Pereira, who is going to have a reach advantage, who is, although coming up a weight class, going to be bigger, who is going to have a lot of power, who is going to probably throw a lot more volume. So I think either guy can knock either guy out. But where I think the biggest difference in skill in this fight is the grappling. We saw Israel Adesanya get his very first takedown ever against Alex Pereira. And I was just not impressed with what I saw in terms of the ground game of Alex Pereira. I mean, he looked terrible. I know he's training with Glover Teixeira. Sure, he's making improvements, but my goodness, Adesanya was just having his way with Pereira on the mat. What's going to happen if a big Jan Blachowicz black belt, gets on top of him, right? So I wish I knew the game plan for Blachowicz. If I knew the game plan for Blachowicz, if I knew that Blachowicz would be coming out here and grappling, it'd be a massive bet for me. The fact of the matter is, though, I don't know that, and I'm not 100% sure if he takes that route. But if he does, he should win here. And if he doesn't, he's quite frankly an idiot. So we'll see. We'll see if Blachowicz comes out here and fights smart. If he does, easy win. If he doesn't, it's going to be a little bit harder to get the job done. I'm going to take Blachowicz to go out there, hopefully fight smart, get this fight down to the mat early and often, and submit Alex Pereira in the 2nd round. We'll see if Blachowicz comes in here with a good game plan. And then finally, we have the main event. Probably could be one of the best fights of the year in Dustin Poirier going against Justin Gaethje. Fight of the year potential. If you guys have not already, comment down those significant strikes. I'm expecting some big answers here. But yeah, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje for the BMF Championship belt. We have 5 rounds to work with here. Fight number 2, Poirier obviously getting it done in the first fight. Gaethje looking to go 1-1 here against Poirier. So we'll start with Dustin Poirier, who is 34 years old, 5'9" with a 73-inch reach, 29-7, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Justin Gaethje, 34 years old, 5'11", 70-inch reach, 24-4, and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. So we'll take a look at the odds. We see that Dustin Poirier opened up -125, and he is currently sitting at -150. Justin Gaethje opening up at +105. He's currently sitting at +130 here. So it's a well-matched fight here. It is a very, very well-matched fight. We can go back and watch the first fight, which I think is good to do so, because I think that although these guys have improved, these guys have evolved. I'd say especially Justin Gaethje has evolved since their first fight. We see kind of a different version of Gaethje, a more patient version nowadays, who is not going out there and being as wild as he used to. So yeah, we can go back and watch the first fight, and we see that it was the leg kicks of Justin Gaethje. Heavy leg kicks seemed to be bothering Poirier a little bit in that fight. Poirier was kind of able to kind of battle through that, and it was kind of like the volume of Dustin Poirier. And I kind of went back and looked at the numbers for their last fight, and what I noticed was Gaethje got hit in the face a lot. Dustin Poirier landed 142 head strikes, and I love the hand speed of Poirier in that fight. I love the volume that he brought to the table, and the damage kind of started to add up. And then eventually in that 4th round, he landed a big shot and got Gaethje out of there. But yeah, I mean, Poirier landed 142 head strikes compared to Gaethje's only 56, but Gaethje landed 50 leg kicks. So it's a well-matched fight. It really is. The leg kicks, the power of Justin Gaethje versus, the volume, the way that, Poirier is able to kind of just break you down across 5 rounds, right? So it's a close fight here. It's hard for me to watch that first fight, though, and not go with Dustin Poirier. Again, I think a couple things have changed. I think a couple guys, these guys have improved, especially Gaethje, but I just like the fact that Poirier is going to be landing a lot more in terms of the volume. I think he's going to invest in the body. And we've just seen Gaethje broken a couple times. We saw Gaethje broken against Eddie Alvarez. We saw Poirier break him in the 4th round. And I kind of feel like, Dustin, I trust the durability a lot more. Dustin Poirier is a guy that 36 fights, that he's only been knocked out twice in his career, whereas Justin Gaethje has been finishing all 4 of his losses. So I like Dustin here, but ever so slightly. Like, it's not a confident pick whatsoever. I think these guys are going to stand and bang. I think somebody's probably getting served here, but I'm going to take Dustin Poirier to finish Justin Gaethje late 3rd round here. But, man, I mean, Gaethje can definitely win this. So it's kind of a fight I've been going back and forth on, but ultimately I sided on the Dustin Poirier side, just trusting his cardio a little bit more, trusting the durability a little bit more, and trusting the volume a little bit more. And I like him to kind of, I think the damage is going to add up, and I think Gaethje is going to kind of break late in this fight. So give me a Poirier late 3rd round finish. Should be a phenomenal main event. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. Really looking forward to this card. Really looking forward to build off of last week. Last week was my 2nd biggest night of the year, plus 5.97 units. Went really heavy on UFC London, and I'm going to be going really heavy on this card as well. I really liked London from a betting perspective, and I really like UFC 291 from a betting perspective as well. I do already have 4 or 5 bets thus far. If you want to check those out right now, sign up on dfsbythenumbers.com. If not, wait for Friday. I'll be getting out my betting breakdown video then, talking about all my tracked bets. But yeah, looking to have a lot of action on this card. Looking for potentially my first max bet of the year if the line keeps dropping. So yeah, hopefully it's a good night. I know for sure it's going to be a good night of fights, but hopefully it's a good night of picks and bets and all that good stuff. Leave a like on your way out. Subscribe to the channel. Do appreciate that. Comment down your significant strikes, and we will talk to you guys very soon on Friday for the Final Thoughts live stream, and then once again Saturday for the Best Bet live stream. Best of luck for UFC 291, and we'll talk to you guys soon. See you later.